Good morning, everyone. I hope that all of you must be doing your work, your assignments, which I usually gives to you, as well as you must be preparing yourself and you must be caring of your health and your surroundings. Dear students, we had already begun with chapter number 5, that is executive in India. It is a long chapter, so please make your interest by doing your regular assignments. Dear students, in this chapter we had completed few topics. The first topic was we had come to know about the meaning of executive. And you all know that executive is used in a broad sense to indicate the branch of government responsible for the implementations of law and policies made by the legislature. After that, we had completed another topic, and which was known as the functions of executive. In this series, we have completed the executive ensures that the decision and policies of government are carried out. Secondly, the executive have some share in the process of legislation as well, because some most of the bills are being presented by the cabinet ministers. Thirdly, another important function of conduct of relations with other states. Fourth, in all the countries, the head of the state is also the supreme commander of country's armed forces. Fifth, in parliamentary democracy, no demand or grant can be made except on the recommendation of head of the states. So these are basically the five functions of executive. Different types of executives. So students, just make revise that there are basically three types of executive. The first is parliamentary government, जैसा कि हमारी कंट्री में है, where we elect our representatives and they work on behalf of us. Secondly, the presidential government. You all know that under the presidential government, the head of the state exercise the real power. The cabinet ministers in United States are merely the presidential advisors. The third is semi-presidential government. Russia, Sri Lanka, they are set up of semi-presidential government. In this, a directly elected president who has executive power under the constitution. He cannot be removed except by a resolution passed by at least two-thirds of members of parliament. In this series, we have completed another topic, and this topic was why did India adopt the parliamentary system of government? We have adopted the parliamentary system of government because the parliamentary India was already working under the parliamentary system during the British time. Secondly, it was very difficult to conduct elections on a large scale, large size for the post of president. Except that we have studied the topic President of India and its election. Dear students, you already know that president's elections are conducted on the basis of the members of both parliament, the elected members of both the houses of the parliament, and the elected members of state legislative assemblies. His election is conducted according to the system of single transferable vote system, or it is known as proportional representation as well. I had already explained this topic to you in the previous classes. Then we have studied the procedure of impeachment. impeachment process is conducted, it may be conducted for the removal of president. In this topic, if removal of president occurs, it may start from any of the house of the parliament, and other house have to investigate the charges which are being given to the president. And if it has been passed by 2/3 majority of both the houses, then president has to resign. President is the chief executive in India. He has some executive power. He appoints the prime minister and other minister. He is the military and diplomatic head of the country. He has legislative powers because no bill can become the law without the approval of president. President has judicial power as well, that he can pardon the punishment of the criminals. He has some emergency powers. He can announce war and peace in the country. In this series, we have completed the topic Prime Minister of India as well as the Vice President. Vice President's post is not very important in India, but he works only when President is not in the power. या President is ill, या President is not on the seat. Vice President is the ex officio chairman of Rajya Sabha as well. Dear students, the most important figure of Indian executive is Prime Minister. We have studied the Prime Minister's relation with the President. We have studied the Prime Minister is the key head of the cabinet. Except that you come to know that the Prime Minister is the face of the government. He announces and saves the policies of the government in the parliament. Except that the Prime Minister represents India at the international conferences. Prime Minister is a most powerful person in the cabinet. आज मैं आपको जो पढ़ाने जा रही हूँ वो है काउंसिल ऑफ मिनिस्टर्स. The first step towards a forming of a new government is a designation of the new prime minister. मैंने अभी आपको बताया कि किसी भी सरकार में सबसे ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट कौन होता है? प्राइम मिनिस्टर. और प्राइम मिनिस्टर के साथ उसकी एक अपनी काउंसिल ऑफ मिनिस्टर होती है. So the ministers are being appointed by the president on the advice of the prime minister. It is his right to have a government which can work together as a team and which can secure the support of Lok Sabha. The Prime Minister has also to bear in mind that as far as possible, all the major communities and geographical region of the country find a representation in the ministry. कि जब प्रधानमंत्री अपनी मिनिस्ट्री बनाता है या अपनी कैबिनेट बनाता है तो वो पूरी कोशिश करता है कि ज़्यादातर वो सभी धर्मों जातियों के लोगों को अपने मिनिस्ट्री में शामिल करे, विच इज़ नोन एज कैबिनेट. और वो पूरी कोशिश करता है कि इंडिया के मैक्सिमम रीजन्स के लोग उसमें लिए जाएं. ऑल मिनिस्टर्स हैव टू बी द मेंबर ऑफ ईदर हाउस ऑफ द पार्लियामेंट. ये खास बात ध्यान से समझ लीजिए. मिनिस्टर जो हैं वो किसी भी हाउस से लिए जा सकते हैं, from Lok Sabha or from Rajya Sabha as well. No minister can also be chosen as minister, but such person must be get themselves elected or nominated or either house of the parliament. यानी मिनिस्टर बनने के लिए सबसे पहली क्वालिफिकेशन क्या है? That person must be the member of parliament. There are various categories of ministers. जो मिनिस्टर्स होते हैं दे आर ऑफ हैविंग डिफरेंट कैटेगरीज. कई तरह की उनकी कैटेगरी होती हैं. ऑल मिनिस्टर्स डू नॉट बिलोंग टू द सेम रैंक. यूजुअली देर आर 3 कैटेगरीज ऑफ मिनिस्टर. ध्यान से समझ लीजिए, जो मिनिस्टर्स होते हैं उनकी 3 कैटेगरी होती हैं. नंबर 1 कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर्स और द मेंबर ऑफ कैबिनेट. नंबर 2 मिनिस्टर्स ऑफ स्टेट. Number 3 deputy ministers. The cabinet ministers hold major portfolios. Portfolio मतलब department. कि जो कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर्स होते हैं उनके पास मेजर डिपार्टमेंट्स होते हैं, लाइक आपको समझ में आया, लाइक द होम मिनिस्टर, डिफेंस, फिनेंस, external affairs, railway, etc. Only the cabinet ministers have a right to attend the meeting of cabinet. They together determine the policy and programs of the government. यानी एक सरकार की सारी पॉलिसी, सारी नीतियाँ प्राइम मिनिस्टर और कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर्स डिसाइड करते हैं. Secondly, there are ministers of state. They are not the member of cabinet. They may or may not be given an independent charge of ministry. They do not participate in the cabinet meetings, but they may be invited to attend the meeting when the matters concerning their department are being considered. The deputy ministers are the junior ministers. तीसरी कैटेगरी क्या है डिप्टी मिनिस्टर्स की, जो जूनियर मिनिस्टर्स होते हैं. दे आर प्लेस्ड अंडर द सीनियर मिनिस्टर्स whom they are to assist. जो तीसरी कैटेगरी के मिनिस्टर्स होते हैं दे आर नोन एज डिप्टी मिनिस्टर्स, और उनका काम कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर्स को असिस्ट करना होता है कि जब भी कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर्स चाहते हैं उनकी हेल्प ले सकते हैं. दे टेक नो पार्ट इन द कैबिनेट deliberations. Deliberations means meeting, यानी कैबिनेट की मीटिंग में ये कभी पार्टिसिपेट नहीं करते. नेक्स्ट इज द पावर्स एंड फंक्शंस ऑफ कैबिनेट. डियर स्टूडेंट्स, when we were completing the topic legislature, in that topic I told you that most of the bills are the government bills. Government bills मतलब जिनका प्रपोजल कहाँ से आता है, सरकार से. So powers and functions of cabinet. The functions of cabinet have not been defined constitutionally, but it has enormous powers and responsibility. First function of cabinet, number 1, that is formulating the policy of government. यानी सरकार की नीतियों का निर्धारण सिर्फ और सिर्फ कैबिनेट करती है. The cabinet formulates the external and domestic policies of government. It takes decision on all major problems. कौन सी problems? Like defense, security, energy requirements, saving for future, health projects, etc. या president rule in the state, forming new states, industrial policy, import of technology, एंड द इलेक्टोरल रिफॉर्म्स. चाहे कोई भी इम्पोर्टेंट पॉलिसी हो सरकार की, इस सब में जो पार्टिसिपेट करते हैं डिसाइड करने में वो होते हैं कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर्स. कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर्स हैव कंसिडरेबल फ्रीडम ऑफ एक्शन, बट ऑन ऑल द मेजर मैटर्स दे शुड नेसेसरली कंसल्ट द कैबिनेट. नेक्स्ट इज एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव फंक्शंस. The cabinet is essentially a policy framing body. When it determined on policy, the appropriate department carries it out. यानी सरकार की जो पॉलिसी डिसाइडिंग अथॉरिटी है वो कैबिनेट होती है. जब ये अपने डिसीजन ले लेती है तब सरकार आगे अपना काम बढ़ाती है. With respect to the working of the department, ministers must be faithfully follow the directions of cabinet. Third, control over the national finance. जब मैं आपको लेजिस्लेचर में मनी बिल पढ़ा रही थी तो मैंने आपको बताया था कि मनी बिल्स आर प्रेजेंटेड बाय द फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर. So cabinet is responsible for whole of the expenditure of government and for raising the necessary revenue to meet it. A money bill can be introduced in Lok Sabha only by a minister. The annual financial statement, जिसको क्या हम कहते हैं बजट, it occupies a peculiar position, although it is presented to the parliament in the name of the cabinet. Its full proposal are neither circulated among the cabinet ministers nor debated by them. अभी मैंने आपको बताया कि मोस्टली सभी पॉलिसी कैबिनेट में डिसाइड होती हैं, लेकिन जो बजट होता है उसमें कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर्स पार्टिसिपेट नहीं करते। हालांकि वो सब संसद का हिस्सा होता है, फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर उसे रखता है, लेकिन बजट जो है वो पहले डिस्क्लोज नहीं किया जाता। द प्रपोजल आर डिस्क्लोज्ड टू द कैबिनेट orally on the day when the finance minister is to make his budget speech in the parliament। और बजट के बारे में सीधी सीधी जो डिबेट है, सीधी सीधी जो बताया जाता है, वो फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर पार्लियामेंट में ही बताते हैं। द डिटेल्ड टैक्सेशन प्रपोजल आर however shown to the prime minister before they are presented to the parliament। लेकिन अगर टैक्स लगने हैं बजट में तो इसकी डिटेल डिस्कशन प्राइम मिनिस्टर के साथ होती है। द अनदर पार्ट ऑफ मिनिस्टर्स आर या कैबिनेट आर द लेजिस्लेटिव फंक्शन। इन द प्रीवियस चैप्टर ऑल्सो आई टोल्ड यू that more than 90% of the bills are the government bills prepared by the ministers. They are introduced, explained, and defended in the parliament by the ministers. With a stable parliamentary support, a majority of members vote in the favor of government's motions. In a matter of issuing ordinance or in other matters, the president acts on the advice of the ministers. The cabinet is the instrumental in planning and moving on amendment of the constitution. The last power of ministers is the proclamation of emergency। यानी अगर किसी स्टेट में इमरजेंसी लगानी हो, अगर किसी कंट्री में इमरजेंसी लगानी हो, तो फाइनल पार्ट लाइज इन द हैंड्स ऑफ द ministers. The president cannot proclaim state emergency under Article 352 unless the Union Cabinet recommends that such a proclamation means, dear students, announcement should be made। कि जब तक कैबिनेट ये फाइनल नहीं करती कि किसी स्टेट में मिनिस्टर जो है वो प्रेसिडेंट रूल लगना चाहिए, तब तक प्रेसिडेंट भी उस स्टेट में प्रेसिडेंट रूल नहीं लगाते। द आर्टिकल रिलेट्स टू अ प्रोक्लेमेशन ऑफ इमरजेंसी इन द इवेंट ऑफ वॉर और एक्सटर्नल अग्रेशन और द आर्म्ड रिबेलियन। यानी इमरजेंसी किसी भी तरह की हो, बिना कैबिनेट की मंजूरी के प्रेसिडेंट उसे इम्पोज नहीं कर सकते। नेक्स्ट इज मिनिस्ट्रियल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी। It is your last topic of today's class. Ministerial responsibility is essential feature of the parliament from parliamentary form of government. As in Britain, as in India, the principle of ministerial responsibility has two dimensions। कि जो मिनिस्टर्स होते हैं उनकी जवाबदेही क्या है। बेसिकली देखो, वो पॉलिसी फ्रेमर्स हो गए, वही पॉलिसी को लागू भी करवा रहे हैं, तो क्या उनकी कोई रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी नहीं है? क्या उनकी कोई जवाबदेही नहीं है? Of course है। They are responsible for two types. First is collective responsibility। Collective responsibility का मतलब क्या हुआ कि सभी मिनिस्टर्स अपने काम के लिए सामूहिक रूप से जिम्मेवार होते हैं। Under the Article 75(3) of Constitution, the Council of Ministers shall be collectively responsible to the House of People। That is what the term ministerial responsibility actually means. The ministers are responsible to the Lok Sabha, not as individual alone, but collectively also. The members of cabinet swim and sink together. When decision has been taken by the cabinet, every minister has to stand with it without hesitation। A minister that has lost the confidence of Lok Sabha must resign। यानी सरकार ने जब अपनी नीतियों की घोषणा कर दी, उसके बाद ऐसा नहीं है कि जिस डिपार्टमेंट की पॉलिसी रॉन्ग हुई सिर्फ वही मिनिस्टर रिस्पॉन्सिबल होगा। the whole government to be responsible for that. And this is known as the collective responsibility. The second is individual responsibility. Though the ministers are individually responsible, they are collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha, they shall be individually responsible to the head of the state. Head of the state कौन है? President. यानी मिनिस्टर अपने कृत्य के लिए, अपने काम के लिए सरकार के प्रति जवाबदेह होते हैं. The ministers hold the office during the pleasure of the president. यानी ऐसा नहीं है कि एक बार कोई मिनिस्टर बन गया तो परमानेंटली बन गया. वो राष्ट्रपति की इच्छा तक अपनी पोस्ट पर रहता है. It implies that minister shall be liable to the dismissed by the president for the undesirable activities. यानी अगर प्रेसिडेंट को लगता है कि कोई मिनिस्टर कुछ अनडिज़ायरेबल कर रहा है तो ही और शी कैन बी डिसमिस्ड. उन्हें हटा दिया जा सकता है. Except that in these matters the president acts on the advice of the prime minister. No person can be retained as a minister if the prime minister is of the view that he should be dismissed. यानी अगर प्रधानमंत्री को लगता है कि कोई पर्सन सही से काम नहीं कर रहा है या उसकी अपनी इच्छा है प्रधानमंत्री की, तो वो उसे उसकी पोस्ट से हटा सकता है. ठीक है. तो दिस इज़ ऑल ऑफ टुडेज़ क्लास. आज की क्लास के लिए आपने बेसिकली 3 चीज़ें पढ़ी हैं. आपने पढ़ा काउंसिल ऑफ मिनिस्टर्स, आपने पढ़ा कैटेगरीज ऑफ मिनिस्टर्स और आपने पढ़ा मिनिस्टीरियल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी. आई विल बी गिविंग ओनली 2 questions फ्रॉम दिस टॉपिक and I hope that you all must be doing that. And please put your sincere efforts in doing your assignments. Thank you very much.